plated. It actually takes a lot of work to get a bike that's salvaged back on the road in California. So yeah, that's done, whatever. So here's what I'm doing today. I'm just swapping out the coolant. I'm gonna flush it because it was overflowing. It was boiling yesterday, and I think that might be because there's maybe just a lot of water in there. It's not all coolant in there. So I'm just gonna put some 50-50 mix in there, just pre-mixed stuff, and hopefully that'll fix that issue. I don't know where the drain bolt is for the coolant, so I'm just gonna take off this line down here and just drain from the bottommost part of the system. I was looking around on the radiator, I couldn't find a drain bolt, so I'm just gonna do that. I got some upgrades coming for the bike. New steering bearings, because there's a little bit of play back and forth, like with hard braking, I can kind of feel it knocking around a little bit, so I think there's some play in here. So I'm just gonna replace those. I got some progressive springs coming in for the forks, because these stock springs for the front forks they're either on or they're off. I need something progressive, you know, something a little bit more sophisticated than whatever the hell's in there right now. And then just while I have the forks off, I'm just going to replace these seals that aren't leaking yet, but I mean, I'm gonna have the forks apart anyways, so might as well. So all right. Okay. It's cold today. I mean, it's December, what do you expect? But hey, there we go. Some stuff wants to come out already. Ugh, that's dirty. Oh. You know, you try and catch everything, but you never get it all. I think I might end up... No. Ugh, I wish I had some rear stands. It's not like this bike has a center stand. It's a race bike. Just gonna do this until the pressure relieves a little bit. Most of this crap gets off of there. And then I'll just completely drain it and just take this line completely off. But what's coming out of here looks like just water, which would explain why it's boiling when the bike runs. Because water boils, coolant tends not to, or at least has a higher boiling point. So, yeah, I guess the previous owner just topped it off with water and then sold it to me, so that's okay. I expect this sort of thing. It's really not that big a deal. Is it draining? No, it's not draining by itself. It still needs my help. Well, you get the idea. Flushing the system now with water, just filling water up at the top, running the bike for a little bit, and then draining. And it looks like, oh, there's some more. Not quite done yet. Still getting a little bit of dirty water out of there. We're gonna keep doing this until we get nice and clear.
Ooh, so yeah, that means she might be in the hole too. No. She's not, what I'm saying is she can't I know I'm not supposed to be having the cap off.
with the bike running, but it's not hot, so I can get away with it. Alright, just basically fill it up until the overflow cap, or the cap at the top starts overflowing with water. And then we'll pull this off. And it looks like we're making progress. Yeah, so we're just gonna keep doing that. Alright, so now that we are getting clear out of the drain down there, I'm gonna start putting the new stuff back in here. This is just 50/50 green coolant, no big deal. Just gonna fill up the overflow first. Just make sure it's at the minimum point. I don't want it any more than that. That's about right. Honestly, it's a little bit too much, but still within the acceptable range. So I'm gonna go with that. Alright, so now we're refilling the coolant down here, or up here. And the idea is you're gonna keep filling it up here, just enough to see it kind of start coming up in the filler, like there. And then usually it'll work its way down a little bit like it's doing right now. You add a little bit more. And then it'll work its way down again. And you do this dance for a while until it kind of stays. This is all with the engine off. Do this until it kind of like stays where it needs to. Like if you can see it in the filler neck, then, whoops, I was trying to avoid that. Then you start the bike, and I'll show you what that's like. Because basically the system's gonna burp itself. This isn't like doing it on a car where you have to like start. Well, you could like how you do it on a car, like start grabbing radiator hoses and squeezing them to burp the system. You could probably do that here. But I know a lot of guys don't. This is a little by little. You can see it's actually burping itself right now, if you can see. Just take your time. And see if this actually holds steady in there. Well, not quite. Still working its way through. But I think I'm gonna start the bike. I think that's good enough. Oh, and I also have the little piece of wood under the kickstand here to level the bike out a little bit. It makes it a little bit more honest when you're refilling the system and all that. So I'm gonna start it, and you're gonna see the level move around a little bit, and turn that choke down a little bit. You're gonna see all the coolant just disappeared. So we're gonna add some more. Not all the way to the top, but just to the filler neck. There, right there. That's about where I want it. There's a little bit at the bottom, and that's good enough for right now. I'm actually going to squeeze some hoses. They're not hot right now. I'm just going to squeeze them. See, they're pulsating a little bit. That's me squeezing it. And that usually gets some bubbles out. But it's looking like this might be pretty good as is. And the other thing to do is rev it a little bit. See, I got some bubbles going. put the cap back on. This is gonna start overflowing pretty soon. Come on, buddy. There we go. Alright, now the cap's on. Now what we do is we watch the temp gauge. And we wait for it to get up to the temperature that the fans would kick on. And if they kick on, then we're done. But if they don't kick on, then you probably have something wrong with your thermostat, or there's probably some more bubbles in the system or what have you. So you gotta go and look at some stuff. But basically now it's a waiting game. Just wait for the coolant temp to go up. And if the fans kick on, we're done. Alright, the fan just kicked on, and it looks like that's about as hot as it's gonna let the engine get, which is right about in the middle. A little bit, yeah, it's right about at the middle. So I think we're good. Let's shut the engine off. Let's see if you can. You definitely can't see the fan going, but I put a flashlight on there, and you know, you can see it spinning, so it's working. So the thermostat works, fan works, cooling system works. And it doesn't boil over. Because when I did this last time, when I shut the bike off after it got up to temperature, this started overflowing. The reserve started overflowing. It's probably just because there's nothing but water in there. But now that it actually has coolant in there and it doesn't boil as quickly, yeah, it's not doing that now. Now it just takes it easy and does what it's supposed to do. So, boom, coolant swapped. Awesome. Now, the other thing, when I took it to the shop, because this was a salvage title, and in California, the one thing that you have to do is you have to take it to a motorcycle shop, and they do a quick check on it to make sure that everything works correctly, like electronics, brakes, all that stuff, basically to make sure that if they decide to put it back on the road, that it's not going to completely fall apart and be a danger to you and other motorists. So I went there, I talked to the guy, and he told me, you know, one of the things that you got to do, the rear brakes are nearly done, and he is right about that. So I got to change those, and also the oil level is too high. So I'm going to do that next. It's friggin' misty coast rain. It sucks. But god damn it, I want to work on my bike. So draining the oil, get all that crap out of there, and in lieu of a center stand, I just have it propped up against the wall here. Yeah, so the oil I'm using is just some regular 10W40 conventional motor oil. I know a lot of guys have strong opinions about these things, about how only supposed to use motorcycle oil, and you know, this, that, and the other thing, and all these what have you. But I mean, I've put 10W40 regular old automotive oil in a lot of my bikes, and I've never had a problem. So, and I do this not because I'm trying to prove a point here, but just because it's very hard for me to get my hands on motorcycle oil, and it's super easy for me to get my hands on regular oil. So the reason why I'm changing is, you know, I don't know about the type of oil that was in there before. I don't think the previous owner did a good job with this bike, so I'm just gonna, an oil change is super easy, so I'm just gonna take care of it. And yeah, it was also overfilled, so I'll take care of that too. But yeah, you know, it's just an oil change. It's nothing to really make a video about. One thing that's worth noting is where the fill line is and how exactly you fill up your oil. Now you'll note on the little spyglass here, there's two dots there and there. That's your low, that's your high. You want it in the middle, you know, obviously preferably towards the full versus low, but that's where you want it. The previous owner had the entire spyglass filled with oil. That ain't right. So that's how you want it. I have the bike on basically level as much as I can. It's got a little block of wood under there. And now I'm going to start it up and watch the oil level. Make sure I don't have to add anything.